Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the inaugural shir of Iyun Shulchan Orach. We're going to be talking about Siman Aleph Orach Chaim. This is the first shir. The NFT is going to be worth so much. So obviously you don't have ownership over that. I do, but you're witnessing history over here. You're witnessing the first shir in the new cycle of Shulchan Orach I just gave, and now I'm going to give an Iyun on one of the halachos. Um, and every time you do Iyun on Shulchan Aruch, it's obviously going to be Lamaisa, Lamaisa, Lamaisa. And it's going to relate to the general theme of why I'm doing this cycle. Halacha is that wasn't really mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch. We didn't really get to that. The post can bring, Mishnah Berurah talks about that. When you wake up, we're going to talk about this in Siman Dalet, about Netilas Yadayim. You're supposed to do Netilas Yadayim when you wake up in the morning. Nagel Wasser, people know you have to do it 3 times on each hand. You alternate which hand you do it on. First do your right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand. That's until Sedai with Nagel Wasser in the morning. Now, Post can talk about a couple of different halachas that apply over here. First of all, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you plan to go back to sleep, right? You have to do Nagel Wasser. In that case, it's machlokas among the poskim. Some say you do, some say you don't. Seems to be mashma from the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah that you don't have to do that. Mekar Adin. Some are machmer say that you do have to do it. If you want to go to the bathroom, you want to touch food. That's what Rav Chaim Kanievsky says, that if you're going to touch food, you're going to go to the bathroom, really you should wash your hands, nigel wasser, even though you plan on going back to sleep. And the same halachas would apply even if you woke up in the morning and you plan on going back to sleep till a later hour in the morning. The same halachas would apply. Now, they do talk about what if you wake up and you're waking up, you're not going back to sleep. So then you have to do Nagel Wasser. Now, one of the things you're not allowed to do, you're not allowed to say Divrei Torah before you wash your hands. Now, the way the post can understand this is not, you don't have to do Nagel Wasser. Technically, if you wash your hands one time, even if you don't have something to wash your hands, you don't have water with you, B'diavad, you can actually rub your hands on something which cleanses your hands. You rub it against your pants, against a hard surface. It would cleanse your hands of any dirt, any filth on your hand. That would be good enough. It would allow you to say Divrei Torah, not just Divrei Torah, but also Tfilos, and also the Shem Hashem, things like that. You need to do that in order to do that. And second of all, there's another problem with learning Torah before you wash your hands, and there's because you have to say Birchas HaTorah. So in order to enable you to say Torah, to learn Torah, you have to do 2 things. You have to wash your hands. You don't have to do Nagel Wasser, and you have to say Berachas HaTorah. So obviously these are things that are going to be talked about later on in Orach Chaim, but just to start off with, get a little taste of it. It's not so clear exactly where the makor for these things are. I mean, the Mishnah Berurah brings that there's a halacha. I don't know if people know about this, that you're not supposed to walk Dalet Amos, which is about 6 feet, without doing Nagel Wasser. That's why a lot of people have the minhag to bring these bowls next to your bed with Netilas Yadayim water, so that right away when you wake up, you can do it without walking Dalet Amos. If you live close to a sink, if your bed isn't close to a sink, technically you wouldn't have to do that. If you're close to a bathroom, within 6 feet of your bathroom, most people don't have that, then you can go to your sink and wash. But really it has to be within Dalet Amos. This is brought in halacha. The Mishnah Berurah brings us. The makor is really a Zohar. Zohar is mafli. Zohar talks about these things as a terrible avera to walk Dalet Amos without washing your hands, and is very mafmer about this. But in regards to saying Torah and Tefillah, where is the makor for that? Where is the Gemara? Where does it say that you're not allowed on Torah if your hands? So one of the Rishonim says that the reason they're masakin Netilas Yadayim in the morning is because Yadayim Askanios him, your hands are very busy at night. When you're sleeping, you're not cognizant of where your hands are, and they might touch parts of your body. We're going to learn if you touch parts of your body that are normally covered by clothing, either because of the sweat or the filth on that part of the body, that would make your hands dirty, and you're not allowed to say Tefillah or Torah or Brachos, Shem Hashem. You're not allowed to say those things with your hands that are dirty. Now, what's the makor for that? What is the makor? So there's a Gemara in Brachos. The Gemara in Brachos Daf Kafeh. It talks about if your hand touches soa, it touches feces, it touches excrement, are you allowed to say Divrei Torah? Now, it's machlokas, Rav Huna, Rav Chisda, whether you're allowed to or not. We'll get to that eventually, what the halacha is over there. But here we're not talking about soa. The Gemara clearly says soa over there. Here we're talking about yadayim askanios. Your hands are touching a place of sweat, or touching underneath, let's say, your arm, underneath where you wear a shirt, on your chest or something like that, where there's a lot of sweat or filth. Not necessarily soa. Soa is a very chomer thing in halacha. It says v'yamalkanach kodesh. There's a pasuk in the Torah. Yasid al isnecha. You have to go out of the place where the soa is. You have to bury it. According to the Torah and Dalet Amos of that. Yamalkanach kodesh. You can't do it in a makom of excrement, but that's only excrement. So we see the Gemara. You're talking about yadayim askanios. The Gemara in Shabbos references it. The Gemara in Shabbos, I believe, on Daf Tet Vav, the Gemara talks about it. The Gemara there is talking about Netilas Yadayim for Truma. Before you eat bread, which is Truma, you have to do Netilas Yadayim, maybe any Truma. Because Yadayim Askani because it's, Rashi says it's disgusting to eat something which is Kadosh, Truma, which is Kadosh, eaten by the Kohanim. You have to be in a state of cleanliness. If you're not in a state of cleanliness, to eat Truma, so that's why they're masakin Netilas Yadayim before you eat Truma. So you shouldn't, it shouldn't be disgusting when you're eating a davar kadosh, davar truma. Based on that, they're masakin. When you eat bread, you're supposed to do netilas yadayim, which is based on truma. Really, the takana is about truma. But this is even more of a extension to say not only before eating truma, not only before eating bread for a meal, but also before learning Torah in the morning, or you touch the dirty part of your body. Yadayim askani same. That's what the Rush says, so it's kind of hard to understand. But this is the halacha. So you have to know whether it's really maker at dinner or not. That really you can't. If you go to bed, even if you were to touch for sure under your shirt, or touch your arm where your sleeve normally covers, or touch your leg where your pants normally cover, is it so pasha that you can't say the Torah or things like that? They're talking for truma and for maybe for eating bread. But how do you know about that? And the second thing about Birchas HaTorah, you're not supposed to, where's the Makor? You're not supposed to learn Torah before Birchas HaTorah. We're going to get to Birchas HaTorah, so it's not really clear in the Gemara. The Gemara in Brachos says, Ki Shem Hashem Ekra Habu Godel Eloken. You're supposed to say Birchas Torah before you learn Torah. But how do you know it's Aser? It's a mitzvah to say it before, but how do you know it's Aser to learn Torah before? So I asked with that over here, the Rosh Kolel, he told me basically that the Makor is a Gemara in Nedarim, the Gemara in Daf Pei Aleph. The Gemara says that one of the reasons Klal Yisrael is punished, Elo Birchu B'Torah Tchila, or that Talmidei Chachamim, or Talmidei Chachamim get punished, is because they learn Torah, Shelo Baruchu B'Torah Tchila. So I think the Rashi over there, whether it's the Rashi or not, or the real Rashi or not in Nedarim, is disputable. He says over there, they didn't make a bracha. They learned Torah before Birchas HaTorah. It's disrespectful to the Torah. The Ran, though, gives a different explanation. The Ran says it's not so much that it's usher to learn Torah before learning Torah. It's just a simon that because they learned Torah before, it was symbolic of the way they learned Torah. They learned Torah not lishma. They learned it for their own tanug, for their own personal benefits, whether it was financially or kavod or things like that. They didn't learn the Shema, right? The Shelo Bircha B'Torah, they didn't give kavod to the Torah to make sure to give kavod. How do you give respect to it? To daven, to thank Hashem for the Torah before you learn it. So Shelo Bircha B'Torah Tchila, and he says over there, they learn the Torah Lishma. So it would tie back in very nicely into the whole theme we're getting into over here. Why I started this cycle over here is to learn Torah Lishma. And Lishma, he doesn't explain what Lishma means over there, but Lishma, I'm saying it means is that Lishma, for its name. What is the name? What does Torah mean? What does the word mean? Mora derech, teach you the proper way to live, to keep the Torah. That's the point of the Torah, is to teach you what to do. You have to know what to do. That's why we learn Shulchan Aruch. That's why we're in the poskim. That's why we ask a rabbi Shaila, in order to know what to do. That's the ultimate purpose of the Torah. Limo lami lishmor v'lasos. It's Makayim, the Torah. So therefore, it's the Shema, and that's why you're not allowed to learn Torah before Birchas Torah. But according to the Ran, it would just be a sim. The Gemara is not really saying halacha over there. It's not saying halacha that you can't learn Torah before Birchas Torah. It's just saying because they learned Torah before, they didn't give the proper honor to the Torah. But it's not really saying Israel. So I'm leaving you with two thoughts over here, two questions. It's not so clear, even though it's very clear from the poskim over here. You're not allowed to learn Torah or daven or say brachos before with your hands askanios when you went to sleep, even if your hands for sure touched a place that was makom zuma, makom of sweat, of filth in your body, it's not so clear that you can't learn it. It's also not so clear that you can't learn Torah or say brachos or learn Torah before brachos Torah. It's not so clear what these things are. I gave you the sources. You could ask your rabbi, talk about it more. See you in the next year. See you tomorrow.